Now I hear that. I got it. All right. Thank you so much, Jess. Thank you all for being here. This is a special privilege. I'm supposed to stand by the tape. This is a special privilege because I get to present some research with my very own student. And I don't think I've actually ever done that before. So this is a very exciting time. Like Jess said, we're here to talk about internships at Adams State. It is one of our primary high impact practices that we like to engage in. So I will just get started here. Actually, before I get into too much detail, I should start by saying internships happen all over campus. And the folks who are supporting internships, running internships, coordinating internships are very many. There are so many people. So I've kind of come up with this list of names and other groups of people such as faculty members and community members, really to demonstrate that the internships are more than just the student. It is more than just the person who's supervising them, but it's everybody around. And so hopefully you will see some of that interdependence as we move forward with our presentation. But also this list is by no way near complete. There are internships and people who are working on internships all over. So if your name is not up here, I apologize, but I am still very grateful for your support with our internships. All right, so what we have for you today is essentially, I want to call it a State of the Union, but it's more like a state of the internships. The best we can tell, right? So our goal tonight is really to give you what we know about the assessment of internships on campus or off campus at Adams, and really to talk about what plans are for future sustained data collection. So essentially I'm going to talk a little bit about what makes a high impact internship, right? That's something Adams is really focused on. I'm going to talk to you a tiny bit about some existing research about internships and kind of what they entail. And then Emily's going to tell you the story of her internship. Like Jess said, Emily started this project as an intern in sociology. I was her faculty advisor. Shirley was her supervisor at Career Services. And we kind of went from there. So Emily's going to tell you her story. She's going to talk to you about the findings of the research that she did in her internship. And then I'm going to talk to you about the next chapter for studying internships at Adams State. So we've got a few things going on here. And the word internship is going to get thrown around a lot, and there's different levels going on, so I kind of need to clarify things a little bit. Like Jess said, Emily was in an internship class in sociology. I was her faculty advisor, so she got 3 credits and a letter grade. I met with the group of interns twice a month for an hour each time, and we had like a structured facilitated discussion. We talked about e-portfolio. We talked about all the things that happen in an internship. At the end of the internship, right, their 90 hours are complete, Emily continued with Career Services to kind of continue the study. So we have information from her internship and then also kind of what she's working on now. But I also want to highlight that underlying all of these things that we're talking about and the different roles Emily played and the different roles I played and kind of everybody in there, there is a series and a collection of interconnection, networky relationships underlying all of this. So we're going to talk about kind of best practices in internships. We're going to talk about challenges in internships. But one thing that often gets overlooked or minimized is the fact that the relationships that exist, usually long before the intern ever takes their position, to create the position, to write a description of the position, to arrange learning agreements between the faculty member and the class, and it's all connected. So I want to start by making sure we're all clear that underlying everything else we're talking about tonight is a collection of relationships that I did not make, right? I've been at Adams for 5 years. We're going to talk a lot about the internships in sociology. Those internships are really the result of the faculty before me and our more senior faculty who've been in the community for a long time and building these relationships. So we're talking about stuff in the last couple years, but this has been going on for quite a while. All right, so just to give you some context, internships at Adams are a key component of our Adams experience, right? So Adams experience is a collection of high impact practices. Internships are one of them, but I want to highlight that the discussion about how to study internships, what data should we collect, the logistics, how are we going to be able to do this across campus. Some departments have what I would call an internship, but they don't identify as having an internship. Some departments have internships that are tied to, credentials or licensure, right? Others do not. So there's all kinds of mishmash going on here. The discussion on how to study it really has been happening over a series of events over the last few years. We had the Adams Experience Development Days, the Corner to Capstone Fall Forum. We did an internship roundtable. There was the Winter HIPS retreat. And in all of those, we had a discussion about what is the high impact qualities of this practice and how do we study it, right? How do we study is a key point on this. But in all of that, at the end of it, we still did not have a study. We still did not have a real plan. One of the things that we talked about, I'm going to take credit for it, is you know what would be great is if we can find a student, call them an intern, and have them collect and analyze this data for us, right? all of this was faculty and staff, and we met and we talked and we did roundtables and we exchanged ideas, but we never had any data collected. So we needed to take the next step. So another thing that has happened in the last few years in terms of internships at Adams is the development of this internship policy, which standardized a lot of the language defining what an internship is, kind of the requirements of an internship. One underlying thread in all of this is it's all different and operating in different places. There's different requirements, different expectations. People are in different kinds of internship sites. So to kind of pull it all together is actually quite difficult, which I was like, maybe we could get a student to do this. There you go. And I want to, again, highlight this idea that internships are built on relationships. And I want to do a little profile on, this is not an internship thing out of sociology, but it is kind of an innovative program that came out of Title V. It's called a team internship program. I participated in this program as a faculty coach. So I had a little bit of a role in this. But I wanted to kind of highlight what is innovative about some of our internship approaches, and we can kind of trace them through. So essentially, just to give you a tiny bit of background, there's Professor Webb. There's me. Oh, what up? No. There's me again. There's me again. That's me on the little screen there. I got to be in a little movie. But essentially, a team internship was a group of students who are all going to be doing an internship together as a group, small teams, and they're paid. And the internship activities occur largely during the school day. So we're dealing with like issues about payment and issues about schedule. If I could if you can humor me with a short story on this, I was a faculty coach, AJ was a faculty coach, Mark Manzanares was a faculty coach, can't remember who else. But one of the first days we all got together, right? All the interns were together, the faculty coaches were just introducing ourselves. And all of the faculty members went around and we were like, tell us about your first internship experience, right? That was the question all the professors had to answer. So the others gave their, I worked here, I worked there, I started here, then I did this. And then it was my turn and I was like, I never had an internship, like ever. There were internships when I was an undergraduate, but they were unpaid. That meant time away from my $5.50 an hour job at McDonald's to engage in unpaid labor, right? I had to work 30 hours a week minimum to make my rent on my studio apartment that I shared with 2 other people. And if I did not hit 30, I had to come up with those hours somewhere else, right? Or have a real issue. So it made me really think that there is equity issues built into a lot of how the internships operate. For myself, there was I did once apply for a competitive internship in Santa Fe, and it was like with the Department of Health and Human Services, and it was research, and I was so excited. But it meant I had to find a place in Santa Fe to live. I had to feed myself in Santa Fe. I had to figure out how to get around in Santa Fe, right? Now, I'm from New Mexico, I can figure that part out. But I didn't have the cash. And if I was there, then I wasn't working for cash. So it was like, I couldn't do it. I had to come up and be like, can't do it, I'm sorry. So the innovation that we see in a lot of Adams State internships really have to do with that level of servingness. And we're gonna talk a lot about that tonight. But the innovation in this particular program was that it took the scheduling issues out of it by having folks meet on campus and during daytime time, and they were paid, right? So those are 2 key components already to kind of show that we can get more people into our internships. All right, so I didn't skip one, did I? Nope. Okay, so we really wanted to put together a plan to study internships. We looked at the literature. A lot of this was done before Emily and I kind of jumped in, but we know that there are very standard definitions for an internship, right? It is a structured, career-relevant experience. It brings together coursework and workplace stuff. It is supervised. There is a structured interaction between the employer and the intern. And then there are opportunities for the intern to really think about what they did at the internship. Is it aligned with their professional goals? But done so in a structured way, right? And so when I mentioned that we were meeting twice a month, that's often the work we were doing there. So that's kind of what they look like generally. Now, if we want to add kind of another consideration here, we have these what are called NACE competencies. What is it, Emily? I forgot. You told me.
National Association of Colleges and Employers.
National Association of Colleges and Employers. So they've identified these competencies, which they say are essential for college grads to be successful in the workplace and long-term career development. So we are really focused on getting the student to think about themselves as a student and becoming a professional. So you can see some of these things: teamwork, leadership, communication, critical thinking, equity and inclusion. Those are all kind of competencies that NACE said are important, and they should be part of an internship program, right? So we got that part, but none of this really tells us what makes an internship high impact. It tells us what it is, kind of basic characteristics, and it says these are the things that we should focus on. But how can we assess impact? As part of the C2C grant, that was one of the things we needed to demonstrate, impact. So that was largely what the work Emily did. So there is research that outlines what makes something a best practice and what makes internships specifically a best practice. High impact. So also, this would suggest that we can measure these things, okay? So there are, I think, 7, I don't know, of these. And I'm just gonna go through a few of them. For an internship to have high impact, it must have effortful engagement, meaning it needs to be tough. It needs to be hard. It can't be something that they can just like cruise through. So purposeful, challenging tasks. They absolutely must apply, synthesize, and integrate knowledge from the coursework. Rich and continuous feedback. And that's not from the faculty member, that is from the professional in the field. So it's a little more in-depth, but what I kind of want you to be thinking about in the back of your head is how in the heck do we measure these things, right? These are variables and we're trying to demonstrate an empirical impact. So we got those. There has to be some opportunity for reflection, growth, right? Is this really what I want to do with my life? That kind of thing. Relationship building, that means they are now part of a network, a professional network. They are interacting with peers, coworkers, other staff members, other folks, clients often, right? Because in sociology, our internships are largely at criminal justice or social service agencies. So there's clients and there's a service population. Then we have this idea of engaging across differences. And this is like, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but this is about interaction. Interaction with people who think differently than you and recognizing that as a strength. So the way we kind of saw this is we had some students, for instance, who are sitting in on forensic interviews with survivors of assault, or they are observing a court proceeding, right? So they are kind of seeing what is happening or the interactions or the experiences of somebody who is in a very different situation, right? And through the reflection exercises and all that, they were able to really kind of put themselves in different positions, empathize, and see what's really going on from other perspectives. All right, so that was 6. We're gonna measure these. We've got to figure out how to measure these. Just for cuteness, this is a student and 3 sociology faculty members. A few semesters ago, sociology started to do a sociology internship showcase where our interns took turns presenting to the community, future interns, about like what they've been working on, how meaningful it was, all of those kinds of things. Now, I've told you what an internship is, kind of told you what makes it high impact. We're trying to think about how to measure those things, but there's another kind of underlying component that I want to highlight here. I want to highlight it because it's a key part of our new strategic plan. And also, I would suggest that as the days go by, this is becoming a more controversial topic. So we're going to see where this takes us. But this is this idea of servingness. It's kind of it doesn't really roll off the tongue. It's kind of hard to say. Every time I see it in a sentence, I'm like, it looks weird. But it's a concept, right? It's an idea to kind of make our high impact practices serve our students. So generally, servingness emphasizes equitable access to everybody, right? Education to all, recognizing that we are really also working for historically underserved and first-generation students, calling these groups of students out because they have special circumstances. Adams State is all about social mobility, right? These are those groups that have the greatest social mobility. So servingness really does kind of fit with our identity. If we wanted to kind of think about it a little further, it's really about recognizing students where they are in terms of where they have come from, recognizing that our students are coming from different places, different levels of preparation, right? But to be serving, we have to have processes and structures in place that enhance outcomes and experiences for those students. All students, yes. Especially these two groups of people. This idea of servingness is a key part of the new strategic plan. I did a word count on how many times servingness was in there. A whole bunch, like 60 something. So it's a key point. But I want to kind of think about what it means for Adams State specifically. Last week we had one of the key big experts in servingness come to our campus and give a talk, Dr. Gina Garcia. And so her theory and kind of her explanation is that servingness is a key component of serving students at Hispanic serving and minority serving institutions. Also becoming a problematic term as the days go by. We'll talk more about that. But Dr. Garcia was like, we really need, this is from her article, to create an environment that recognizes and promotes positive and affirming race, ethnicity, language, and cultural experiences of Latinx and other minoritized students. I feel like this is, so I'm a sociologist, right? This is kind of like our bread and butter. But I think it's important to kind of bring more attention to it because it's becoming more and more difficult to say in society, in these great United States, our experiences and interactions in our social world is largely shaped by our identities in these groups, right? So we're putting that up front. Our strategic plan calls out historically underserved communities, first-generation college students, and this whole kind of premise of meeting students where they are with the goal of upward mobility. Another term that Dr. Garcia used was race conscious, right? We are really going to consider race, ethnic, cultural experiences as part of servingness. We've got some more servingness-related activities happening at Adams next week. Is it my turn next? No. Okay, so I told you a little bit about Emily and my role. Like I was her faculty supervisor. Shirley was her internship supervisor. So I'm going to turn things over to her so she can talk to you about how she did her research, the findings, and then I will join back up.
Hi, so before I tell you about the data, I want to elaborate on my position. My position, as it's a recent development. So my position was a program research internship. This was done through the Title V Cornerstone to Capstone grant. And as Dr. Ulibarri said, he was my faculty advisor, and Shirley Atencio was my supervisor. The overall objective of my position was to contribute to ongoing assessment activities conducted by Career Services, CTIR, and HIPS leaders. I was also to work in collaboration with the Cornerstone to Capstone grant objectives for high impact and equitable internships. My main responsibility was to collect, analyze, and report on both qualitative and quantitative data from around campus. I did this by conducting and writing literature reviews, designing, programming, and administering online surveys, recruiting, scheduling, and conducting in-person interviews, organizing and analyzing quantitative and qualitative data, and lastly, writing a summary report of all of the collected data. So for the initial study, it had three main components. It began with a pre-survey, which was conducted on from March 3rd to March 14th, and the purpose of this was to assess students' initial expectations and perceived importance of various internship characteristics and skills. Then the post-survey was conducted from April 4th to May 9th, and the purpose of this was to evaluate interns' overall satisfaction with their experience, the learning gains achieved, and how their actual experiences compared to their initial perceptions. Then lastly, I conducted a focus group. This was on May 12th, and the purpose of this was to explore more of the nuanced, in-depth insights into the internships as HIPS. However, the focus was shifted due to a low response rate, where we did a deep dive into the experiences of sociology interns. Okay, so for the sampling and recruitment, I used a purposive sampling method, also known as a non-probability sampling method. This means that the participants needed to meet a certain set of criteria. The sampling frame is comprised of students who were participating in an internship in spring 2025, enrolled full-time at Adams State University, and also enrolled in a for-credit internship course. 54 students met this sampling criteria and were solicited directly to participate in my study. I additionally posted flyers like this one all over campus to boost recruitment. Then for the pre and post survey, I did a drawing where students received $15 Seven Brew gift cards and an additional $100 City Market gift card for the post survey. Then for the focus group, I gave all participants a $15 Seven Brew gift card. They also received candy bars and a free lunch as an incentive for participation. Moving on to my population and sample, here you can see Adams State's demographics. These come from the spring 2025 cohort in comparison to the demographics from my research. There were 1,503 students in the ASU demographics, and I had 19 students participate in my post survey. Here are some more demographic statistics. Here we are looking at ethnicity first. You can see over here is Adams State's demographics. And then here are the demographics from my study. 33.7% of Adams State students are Hispanic or Latino, and 47.4% of the interns in my study were Hispanic or Latino. Then for first generation college student, 44.5% of Adams State students are first generation college students, and 68.4% of participants in my study were first generation college students. Okay, moving on to department representation. So 54 students met the sampling criteria and were conducted for surveying. For the pre-survey, I had 16 respondents. For my post-survey, I had 19 respondents. And then finally, for the focus group, I had 3 participants that were all from the sociology department. And here you can see the breakdown by department of who participated in my study. Okay, how do you scroll? Okay, the data from my study should be able to be used to highlight the strengths of the university, address areas where intern needs can be better met, and also improve admission and retention rates for the university. However, a low response rate and participation rate introduces a number of challenges in the terms of the generalizability and representativeness of the sample and how we can interpret these patterns. Okay. Moving on to the findings of my study. First, we have the most important skills. This came from the pre-survey. These were the skills that interns rated with the highest importance. These were personal growth, professional growth, the opportunity to learn a new skill, meaningful tasks, and feedback from the supervisor. I also have here the most developed skills. These were the skills that students rated that they had developed most in their internships from my post-survey. This is personal growth, application of skills and knowledge, sense of belonging, meaningful tasks, and opportunities to learn a new skill. Some other significant findings from my research include a high prevalence of unpaid internships. 73.7% of post-survey respondents and all focus group participants reported no financial compensation. This directly relates to servingness because unpaid internships do not provide students with the same opportunities that a paid internship does. It creates a disadvantage for those students, and specifically, students such as first-generation students are more unlikely to be able to take on unpaid internships if they have, for example, they need to have a full-time job to pay their rent or things like this, which are more common for first-generation students. So it's a very significant finding there. Then I have this chart here. This shows the levels of skill development for the NACE competencies. I had all of the students rate themselves on how much they believed they developed these skills during their internship. Here you can see all of the NACE competencies, and along here is the number of interns. I had 19 respondents, and then in the colors here you can see these dark purple areas are where students reported that they had low development of these skills, and then the bright pink is where they rated that it was high. For the most part, the competencies were rated relatively evenly. However, technology was rated much lower than the other competencies, and this is significant, especially in our modern day and age, because technology is a very vital skill for students who are wanting to enter the workforce, and we should make sure that students are developing that skill. Moving on to some of the findings from my focus group. Here I have some quotes. These were the most profound quotes from the focus group, and they each directly connect to one of the HIP characteristics. This first quote here relates to the application of skills and knowledge. The student said, "I was able to use some of the stuff I learned in my law and society class and apply it to my internship." This is a direct example of students taking all of the information they're learning in their classes and using it in the workplace. Then, for engaging across differences, one student said, "I feel like I really was able to realize that I could talk to people and use that as a strength, and also being able to relate to people because of certain things I experienced or been through." This student was able to make the connection that they were talking to different populations of people, and that this was actually a skill of theirs in the end because of their life experience. And here is a picture. This is another picture from the from a sociology internship showcase. Further insights from the focus group. This one talks about effortful engagement and growth. The student said, "I feel like as someone who suffers with imposter syndrome, I feel like I didn't deserve to be there. But they've shown me that I do deserve to be in places, especially places I've worked hard to be in. Not even just the workplace, but also in school. I worked hard to learn the things I've learned and apply it to a job one day. And I feel like that was the most valuable to me. Just to see or just to know other people saw the potential in me without knowing me." This quote was the most impactful quote, in my opinion, from all of my research. Imposter syndrome is a very common thing, especially among first-generation students. And this quote shows the profound impact of internships on students' professional confidence and their ability to overcome imposter syndrome. This directly relates, again, to the idea of servingness. If internships can help students to break through imposter syndrome and similar things, then we are enhancing positive outcomes and experiences for these students through our internships. So, following my research, I was kind of brought back to the drawing board. Now what was the question I asked? And I learned we need to expand, systemize, and support ongoing data collection. I went all the way back to the drawing board and I posted on the NACE community discussion board. And I asked just on that discussion board, what are the ways other universities go about collecting this information on internships as a high impact practice? I connected to multiple universities through this discussion board, including the University of Portland. And after talking with them, I learned two main things. First, that the data needs to be institutionalized, systematic, and centrally operated in order to truly measure the impact of internships. The second thing that I learned is that most universities use a program called Handshake Experiences to collect this data at a large scale. So from there, I began developing the Handshake Experience interface. This was a lengthy process that took me a few months to get together. Handshake Experiences involves three main components. First, there is an internship learning agreement, which is standard for all of our course-based internships. And students will go on there, they'll fill out their learning goals for the semester and provide some important contact information and things like that. From there, the survey process becomes automated. So there is a pre-survey for students that gets automatically sent to their email, and then a post-survey for both the student and their employer also gets automatically sent out. From there, all of the data from all of those surveys is funneled into one database for ease of analysis. So this can really automate data collection. From there, once I had my database developed and the program was in place, I met with academic affairs and student affairs to implement a handshake pilot in sociology. So at first, I just presented the project and let them know that I wanted to implement this for all of the course-based internships here on campus. And they worked with me and agreed to let me pilot the program. And from there, I met with Dr. Ulibarri, and we finalized all of the details, made sure that it matched all of the standards for internships that were in place at the moment. And then we launched the Handshake Experiences pilot program. I went into the internship course on their first day meeting, and I helped students get into the program, familiarize them with it, help them start their learning agreements. And I have 5 students who are currently in the pilot program for the sociology internship course, and you will be hearing updates from that as it progresses. So we are hoping to pilot this for the spring now, and then if all goes well, I am hoping to launch this program to multiple departments for spring. Alongside that, in going back to the drawing board, I realized that we needed to do a few supplemental activities or projects to further our participation rates and things like that. So first, I am doing an employer survey, and this is to add an additional level of data to that initial spring 2025 internship study, and to just help boost that, especially due to the low response rates. I am also doing a monthly newsletter. I am sending one out to faculty and one to employers each month. This will include updates about what we're doing as far as internship research, as well as some intern highlights and things like that. Along with that, I developed internship pamphlets for both employers and students. These have kind of the directions for if an employer or student wants to start an internship. Then lastly, we have been doing internship-related events. Our most recent event was this the CyberQuest internship expedition, and the purpose of this event was to directly connect aspiring interns to internship resources such as grant programs so that they can access internships with more ease and be more familiar of the resources available to them as they want to go into internships.
You can hold that. There you go. I was just so wrapped up in the results. All right. So before I jump into this, I also want to highlight another kind of layer in all of this. The idea to have a student collect and analyze the data was a way to get a student involved in research without having to have a whole new project. So an ongoing kind of project, assessment related, seemed like a really good opportunity to have a student do it under supervision. Emily was in my research methods classes, so I knew she could do it. But I feel like there's also, we have other HIPs, they all need to be assessed. We can get a bunch of Emilys together and have a little think tank. I feel like it's an excellent opportunity to kind of hand a very developed research agenda to some aspiring researchers. That was kind of for myself, that was one of the motivations to kind of get students involved in this. All right, so I want to come back to this idea of servingness. Emily demonstrated that it took multiple attempts to collect data, and we still had only 19 in our sample, even after emails and posters and talking to faculty and me haranguing people. You saw that sociology kind of had a good, strong representation. I might have threatened them. But that's kind of, it was challenging to get people to do this. So all of the stuff that Emily's been doing is really to kind of prop up ongoing data collection so that we can measure these impacts wholly, and then we could even make comparisons between departments. So to do that, I do want to go back to this idea of servingness. And the idea is what it's supposed to do, what it's supposed to accomplish, and how we're supposed to use it. Can we switch? I can't see my notes. So this was a quote from Dr. Garcia's paper. Servingness, we want to embrace it through culturally responsive and inclusive instruction, diverse learners, and support for first-gen students to encourage professional ambitions. So again, I just want to kind of highlight that a lot of these definitions about what makes a high impact practice even better is inclusivity, first-gen students, diverse learners, and we call those categories out as recognized groups with specific objectives and needs. So serving this really is about figuring out where our students are and bringing the internships to them. In terms of servingness at Adams, one of the issue is that too many of our internships are unpaid. That's just kind of like a thing, but it is the thing that is a big obstacle because this still limits who can take one, right? It still limits who can take time off of work, who can still pay bills, that kind of thing. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. There are a few grant programs. I don't know if Opportunity Grant, Sowing Seeds Grant. There's the Next Gen Grant in Business, Lucero Mentoring Project. And a lot of those grants, they paid students to participate in an internship somewhere else. So like Title V paid Emily to work for Career Services. There was another grant that paid a sociology student to work in a residential inpatient treatment place. That helped, right? That helped get those students into those positions and still be paid. We got some challenges. So all of this stuff about servingness, like I said, is about embracing the idea of a Hispanic serving institution. We love it. We just had Hispanic Serving Institution Week. We call out kind of race and ethnic conscious approaches as this is how we meet the needs of our students. We recognize where they came from and who they are. But this came out last week from Department of Ed, the Federal Department of Ed, where they were characterizing HSIs and mechanisms that fund them as racially discriminatory discretionary grant programs. Essentially, using language, MSI grant programs that discriminate by conferring government benefits exclusively to institutions that meet ethnic or racial quotas. So lots of the funds that are tied to Title V, that are tied to HSI, are now kind of, I don't want to say that they've disappeared, but they're being reallocated. HSI as a designation is becoming problematic. It may not exist for much longer, but this is like a major challenge, right? We kind of know what servingness can do. We know how to study it. And the issue is that we're kind of moving toward a non-race conscious thing. You might say that's colorblind. That's one way to think about it. But the research on high impact practices and the research on servingness says if we do not recognize the racial or ethnic conscious differences or experiences, we really run the risk and high probability of masking inequities that are in our system, right? We allow them to perpetuate. We can't study them. We can't call them out. So it essentially erases or minimizes or reduces consideration of the specific experiences of our students. So this is September 10th, so 2 weeks ago maybe, a challenge. There is another kind of push in like higher ed in terms of like measuring impacts, right? We're talking about servingness of internships, but the state of Colorado, the Department of Higher Ed, publishes a report every year about what our return on investment is. And you know, sociologists, again, see that word and I want to barf because it's like we've just kind of reduced a lot of education to capitalist terms, to transactional terms, that kind of thing. But that's kind of the dominant paradigm, so we can't harp on it too much. But every year, State of Colorado, Department of Higher Ed, publishes this return on investment report. Servingness, I'm trying to make the point that addressing servingness is a way to address return on investment. So servingness, particularly through the race-conscious lens, helps prevent institutions from implementing programs that obscure racial inequities. And just to kind of demonstrate what those inequities look like, I pulled this from the report. Now, this doesn't, I don't think, has anything to do with internships, but it has to do with what happens after one graduates. So 10 years after earning a bachelor's degree, our Hispanic or Latinx graduates had median earnings of $69,000 compared to white graduates at $76,000. So that's 10 years after graduation, differences that are identifiable by ethnicity. So we do know the inequities exist. We do know that they persist. And we're trying to kind of make our internships as a connection bridge here. All right. I think that's about it. I will take any questions. We have a number of resources here if you are interested. We got NACE, Handshake, Sociology website, our references for Emily's research. Anything else? Dr. Schaffner.
So it's incredibly informative, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to be here to listen to all of that. And Emily, very nice work, very nice presentation too. I ran the internship program in psychology for a number of years and recently handed it off to Dr. Mitchell. We did not let anyone get any money for any internship because I'm worried that that creates a series of inequity. We have a long history of having established all these relationships with people who want to get interns from us, but get them for free.
Yep.
But also, I have never seen it as a barrier. So our students have a choice of two capstone courses that they could take, internship or research, and it's 2-to-1 or 3-to-1. Take the internship over the research.
Okay.
So I haven't seen it be a barrier, but I'm also worried about if we start finding some that will pay them, then I have some that still aren't being paid, and I'm worried that would create tensions. But I have to say that an incredible number of them get offers for positions immediately following the internship.
Yep.
And some of them, especially in the post-COVID environment, have gotten jobs a degree above where they should. So we had several students walk into school counselor positions under the condition that they got the master's in school counseling here at Adams while they were serving as a school counselor after their internship.
Anything to add?
That's incredible to hear. I think one of the most impactful things about internships is that they really prepare you for your future career or whatever your next steps are going to be. I had a very similar situation as my internship expanded into a position where I am now working for the university as a research specialist, and that was all the result of an internship.
And to your point about the some are paid and some are not paid, so in sociology, some are paid and some are not paid. And it's a little competitive because some of the positions are more desirable than others. Some of the more desirable ones are desirable because of where they are, not so much because of the pay. I think there's really kind of only a few that do pay, but we also have like we place 2 students a semester at probation. In order for our students to go there, they require a 1-year commitment. So even after the 1 semester internship is over, they're still expected to work another semester for free. Most of, I don't know if most is the right word, several of the students that were in that position since I've been here did get offered a position after. So it was good, but it was like a year unpaid. Like, that's a tough pill to swallow. So I hear you. I think there is inequity issues with some being paid and some not, and we got to like compete.
I could do some things, like it used to be 40 hours per credit of study, and we pulled that to 30, and now sociology pulled it to 30 to be similar to other
Yeah. Yeah, we used to require 120 hours. Yeah. Shirley.
So I do have students pretty often who come into the office and they're looking for an internship there. And that would be one of the stipulations of them being able to do an internship. So I do see those students who want internships that pay. Also, just like you said, schools are wanting to do internships. Everyone's kind of like, we want our students to do internships, but we're limited as far as the number of employers in the valley, and we kind of hit the same ones over and over again. Some schools do have programs where they students can check out a class to get to their, like in California or San Diego, I think, at Diego University, they had these little zip cards. The students could check out a car, like leave a book at the library, and go to your internship. So that might be something out of state might want to work at.
And I don't know if we're constrained by, I think a lot of the internships in business are paid,
Mm-hmm.
but I think we're constrained by also the places where our students tend to have to go for their internships that are related to psychology are often places that don't have abundance of money, right? And are maybe even funded on soft money themselves. So there are those challenges.
Yeah.
But I take your point totally because I had experiences as an undergraduate where I could not accept.
Mhm.
They weren't internships per se, but they were research opportunities, even like with my dream thing, like
Mm-hmm.
working with monkeys, but it was 40 miles away and I didn't have a car and there was no public transportation and there was just no way. And in the end, I had to say no.
Mm-hmm. Yep. One point you did say about you're in psych, they can make a choice. Sociology, they cannot. They got to do an internship. So that adds to it, right? Any other questions for Emily?
Yes.
Where do you see this going long term? Do you have any like long-term aspirations with this research?
Yes, I do. So I am currently piloting with the sociology department. I hope to collaborate with as many of the departments on campus to potentially have all course-based internships using the Handshake Experiences program. If we're able to do that, then we can have systematic data collected for all course-based internships for the university, and I think that would be such valuable information for the university, not only to help students with meeting their needs as interns, but also boosting retention rates and things like that for the university.
One more thing.
Yes.
I think that the Ulibarri really has something is to have new students and try to grow our own internships on campus.
Yes.
I will say, I come from a university where we also used Handshake, and we had it for every student on the university, so it follows that kind of pattern of what's good for one is usually good for many.
Yeah.
So if that could even see expansion beyond just students who are in internships, it can become a really useful tool. But I also had a question about, so of the 54 students, they were all in a course for the internship, correct? They were getting course credit for the internship?
Yes.
Is there a way to incorporate the survey into a requirement to finish the internship that way you could increase the actual data that you're being given?
That is the hope with the Handshake Experiences program. So for the pilot, their learning agreement and some of the key components of their internship that are required of them as interns are a part of the system. And so completing these things becomes a requirement of the course. And so as long as all those different courses agree to work with me and implement this program, we would be able to require that. Any other questions? Yes.
Well, no, I just have to say, middle thing, like we would always, people always have to be in choice to serve in research, and even though probably 99.5% would agree, they would still have to be able to opt out because
Yep.
we cannot coerce our participants.
Yes, of course.
I was joking when I said I threatened them. I didn't really threaten them.
I didn't believe you.
Dr. Science, did you have a question?
I think Nick hit it on the head.
Okay. Any other questions for us? All right, well, thank you. I do want to kind of direct your attention to our swag table. You'll see some of our internship brochures that Emily made. You'll see some sociology swag and stuff from the Office of Community and Global Impact. t-shirts, etc. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.